Good evening and a warm welcome to Superscreen's News at 6 for reaching you live from the Center of Excellence here in Lagos State, Nigeria. My name is Olamide Onka. We're glad to have you join us this evening. We'll start the news with this story where the President, Muhammadu Buhari, has promised to overhaul the education sector if he is re-elected in 2019. The President disclosed this at an event tagged The Next Level to mark the launch of his campaign ahead of the 2019 presidential elections. The President said his administration will remodel 10,000 schools every year. The President also promised to intensify the anti-graft war to bring an end to the menace and ensure that the nation's resources are judiciously maximized. And now the President, Muhammadu Buhari, held a closed-door meeting with some state governors over the issue of the new national minimum wage. The meeting, which was held in Abuja, had representatives of the Nigeria Governors Forum in attendance. The governors, after the meeting, however, refused to disclose the outcome of their discussions with the President to journalists. Chairman of the NGF, who is also the governor of Zamfara State, Abdulaziz Yari, and the Minister of Labour and Productivity, Chris Ngige, were also at the meeting. Other governors at the meeting include Akinwumi Ambode of Lagos State, Senator Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, David Umahi of Ebonyi State, and Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State, amongst others. The leadership of the National Assembly has assured the international community of its commitment to continue its legislative activities in spite of the commencement of campaigns for the 2019 general elections. The Senate President, Bukola Saraki, gave the assurance when he received the British Acting High Commissioner to Nigeria, Harriet Thompson, in his office.
I hope that again, the interests of the country and processes and ensuring that we have credible election should be the determining factor in decides what to sign. A lot of work has gone into it, and we're still waiting to see whether we get the assent of the president.
The acting High Commissioner called on security agencies to remain impartial in the electoral process, as she also urged the political parties to discourage the vote buying, which she said undermines the election's credibility.
We drew attention to the fact that as Friends of Nigeria and maintaining our resolutely objective position, we do not support any particular candidate or party, but we are strongly in support of a process that is free, fair and credible. We are very pleased to hear from both the Leader of the Majority and from the Senate President that there is great commitment to continuing that important work. And the bills that we particularly mentioned were the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, the Police Reform Bill, the Communities and Allied Matters Act, the Gender Equality Bill, the Disabilities Bill.
The British envoy also reminded the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to remain impartial in all its endeavors. And now, as the 2019 general election campaign begins, the United States, European Union, and 23 other West African nations have called for transparent campaigns in the run-up to the polls. The group, in a joint statement in Abuja, said they will follow the campaigns and monitor the election process closely. They were warned political and non-political actors against hate speech and violence, adding that the concern is to see a process leading to free, fair and transparent as well as peaceful elections. The body also urged all voters to use their democratic rights and vote, adding that they are particularly keen to see greater participation of women, youth and people living with disabilities. And now the Atiku Agbaje Media Engagement Network has urged the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, to rescind his proposed policy on the sale of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, if elected. The executive director of the campaign support group, Felix Obuagwina, who made this known in a statement, urged Atiku to rather commit himself to perfecting, signing and implementing the petroleum industry bill within 6 months of coming into power. You will recall that Atiku said he would sell 90% of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and retain just 10% of the company for the federal government if elected. And now a non-governmental organization identified as the Raising New Voices Initiatives has expressed confidence in young candidates to make huge political contributions in the coming general elections. They made this position known while briefing journalists in Abuja. In the same vein, young candidates seeking to be elected into the Federal Houses of Representatives said they have what it takes to change the status quo in politics.
We would like to encourage Nigerians that things won't change because we are wishing, or because we are praying, or because we are hoping. Things will actually change when we begin to act as active citizenry, when we take hold of our democracy, when we take hold of our political process. So please, Nigerians have options. It doesn't have to be that party. We will try on our part. We are trying. We're working with political parties. We're talking to them. We're writing letters. We're asking them to reduce the cost of nomination forms for young people. But while we continue that advocacy, we would like to encourage young people to look elsewhere. If a party's ticket is too expensive, there are other parties who can give you at a reduced fee. So please, it is all for the good. Multi-party system is all for the good of the society. It's to encourage that the people have options. You can change to whoever you want. If you don't like this person, you change it. And that is what we want as an organization. We want people to begin to look at the other options that exist in our political process.
And in some security matters, some suspected thugs have stormed the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly. The clerk of the House, who disclosed this to journalists, said the House was meant to sit to discuss the 80th birthday celebration of the former governor of the state, Victor Atta. The thugs, who were reportedly sponsored by some aggrieved lawmakers, disrupted plenary and the process. The aggrieved lawmakers are alleged to be those whose seats were declared vacant by the Speaker of the House. The thugs were eventually dispersed by police officers who tear-gassed them and restored normalcy to the premises of the House of Assembly. And now the Federal High Court in Abuja says the trial of the detained former National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, on charges of money laundering and illegal possession of firearms will henceforth proceed in his absence. Justice Ahmed Mohammed, in making the order, invoked the provisions of Section 352, subsection 4 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which allows the trial of a defendant to proceed in his or her absence if there is no reasonable explanation for the absence of the defendant. Justice Mohammed added that the letter by the ex-NSA, coupled with his absence from court on November 13, showed he is no longer interested in appearing in court for trial. The judge fixed November 11 for continuation of trial with or without Dasuki's presence in court. You're watching the Superscreen's news at 6, and we'll take a break at this moment. When we return, we'll give you some business news. Stay with us. Welcome back to Superscreen's News at 6. Many thanks for staying with us. And now for some business stories. The Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAC, says its revenue disbursement to the three tiers of government hit 6.226 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2018. The information, which was contained in the latest edition of the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative quarterly review released in Abuja, shows there have been a steady increase in the first 3 quarters of this year, with 2.28 trillion naira shared in the third quarter of 2018. The body said the federal government received the highest sum of 904.8 billion, followed by states which received 718.5 billion, and the local government areas receiving the lowest disbursement of 432.1 billion naira. Now, the further review showed that the federal government's receipt of 904.8 billion in the third quarter of 2018 was 11.3% and 7.8% higher than the amounts received in the first quarter and second, respectively. And now the Minister of Works, Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says the current administration has delivered more on its promises than the previous government. Fashola, who made this assertion while addressing journalists, said President Buhari's administration is currently executing 365 road projects simultaneously in 36 states to be delivered within the shortest period of time. In her remark, the special advisor to the president on social media investment, Mariam Owai, said empowering the youth for National Empowerment Program has been the priority of the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. And now the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN, and the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria have decried the delay in payments of outstanding subsidy debt owed by the federal government. MOMAN Executive Secretary Clement Isong, who made this known, said the continued non-payment has severely impacted their working capital, ability to pay bank loans, and the service providers. DAPMAN Executive Secretary Olufemi Adewale also said the processes highlighted the payment by the government are inimical to the operations of the businesses. The association appealed to the government to facilitate the payment of the debts by the agencies saddled with the responsibility. You will recall that the Senate had in July approved the payment of subsidy claims totaling 348 billion naira to all marketing companies based on a request by President Muhammadu Buhari. Still in business, Zimbabwean gold mines have been allowed to retain 55% of their earnings in dollars from 30% previously. The Deputy Mines Minister, Polite Kambura, disclosed this at the government moves to ensure the operations remains viable. Kambura said miners of gold, the country's largest mineral export, should be allowed to earn up to 70% of their sales in dollars. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe had agreed to increase large-scale miners' retention of foreign currency for mineral exports to 55% to allow them to cover production costs. We'll take another break, and when we return, we'll give you some stories from the foreign scene and the latest making rounds in the world of sport. Stay with us.
Before they come, they're supposed to, give us some information, notice, at least maybe a week or so. There was nothing like that.